The stars looked different through the viewport of the colony ship Horizon. Commander Jake Morrison stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the endless darkness of space. Behind him, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. They were 3 months into their journey to New Haven, a planet that promised humanity a fresh start among the stars. Amy Chen sat at the tactical station, her fingers dancing across the holographic displays. She had been monitoring long-range sensors for the past 6 hours, and her eyes were starting to hurt. The job was usually boring. Space was big and empty, and most days nothing happened at all. But today was different. "Commander, I'm picking up something strange," Amy said, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of the bridge. "Multiple contacts, bearing 270. They just appeared on sensors." Jake walked over to her station and looked at the display. 7 ships, each one larger than the Horizon, had dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in their path. The vessels had a design unlike anything in human records: sharp angles, dark metal, and what looked like weapon ports along their hulls. "How did they know we'd be here?" Jake asked. "They must have been tracking us," Amy replied. "These readings suggest they've been following our path for days." The communications console beeped. Lieutenant Kate Robinson looked up from her station, her face pale. "Sir, we're being hailed. Audio and visual." "Put it through," Jake said. The main screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. The creature had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its angular head. Its skin was a deep purple, and its mouth had too many teeth. When it spoke, the words came through a translation device that made its voice sound mechanical. "I am General Vex Thor of the Krillian Empire. You have entered claimed space. Your vessel will submit to inspection and surrender. Any resistance will be met with immediate destruction." Jake took a deep breath. Humanity had always wondered when they would meet alien life. He had hoped the first contact would be more friendly. "I am Commander Jake Morrison of Earth. We are on a peaceful colonization mission. We had no knowledge of your claim to this region of space." Vex Thor's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Your ignorance is not an excuse. You will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. You have 10 of your minutes to comply." The screen went dark. The bridge fell silent. Everyone looked at Jake, waiting for orders. "Assessment," Jake said calmly. Amy worked her console quickly. "They outgun us significantly. Each of their ships carries more firepower than our entire escort fleet. If this turns into a straight fight, we'll lose in under 3 minutes." "What about running?" Jake asked. "They're faster than us," Amy replied. "We can't outrun them, and we can't fight them. Not in a conventional battle." Jake walked back to the viewport and stared at the alien ships. They hung in space like predators waiting to strike. His mind raced through options, discarding each one as quickly as it came. Then he remembered something from his military academy days. A quote from an ancient Earth general: "If you can't win by the rules, change the rules." "Get me Captain Ben Harper," Jake said. "And pull up everything we have on military history. Focus on asymmetric warfare." Ben Harper arrived on the bridge 5 minutes later. He was a big man with a square jaw and scarred knuckles. He led the Marine detachment assigned to protect the colonists. "You needed me, sir?" "How many Marines do we have combat ready?" Jake asked. 200, give or take." "Why?" "Because we're about to fight a battle we can't win," Jake said. "Unless we fight it our way." Amy had pulled up the files Jake requested. Historical records of guerrilla warfare, insurgency tactics, and unconventional combat filled her screens. Wars from Earth's bloody past. Conflicts where smaller forces defeated larger ones through creativity and determination. "What are you thinking?" Ben asked. "These aliens gave us an ultimatum," Jake said. "They expect us to either surrender or fight them head-on. But look at their formation. It's perfect. Textbook. They're arrayed in a battle line like ships in an old naval battle." "So?" Ben said. "So they fight by rules," Jake replied. "They probably have a whole code of warfare, honor, tradition, all that stuff. We're going to ignore all of it." Kate looked up from her console. "Sir, if they have a code of warfare, won't that make us look bad?" "I'd rather look bad than be dead," Jake said. "Amy, can we make our shuttle look like it's running away?" Amy thought for a moment. Yes, I can slave it to autopilot and send it on an escape trajectory. It would draw their attention. Do it, Jake said. And while they're watching the shuttle, we're going to hit them from an angle they won't expect. Ben, get your Marines ready. We're going to board one of their ships. Ben's eyes widened. Board them? Sir, that's insane. Exactly, Jake said with a thin smile. They won't expect it. The next 8 minutes passed in a blur of activity. The shuttle launched from the Horizon's bay, its engines burning bright as it accelerated away. The Krillian ships immediately moved to intercept it, just as Jake had predicted. While their attention was focused on the fleeing shuttle, the Horizon altered course slightly, bringing it closer to one of the alien vessels. 2 minutes until they realize the shuttle is empty, Amy said. That's all we need, Jake replied. Ben, you're up. Ben and his Marines had suited up in combat armor and loaded into small boarding pods. These were designed for emergency evacuation, but Jake had repurposed them. The pods launched silently from the Horizon's lower decks, their tiny engines barely registering on sensors. They drifted through space toward the nearest Krillian ship like pieces of debris. On the bridge of his flagship, General Vexthor watched the human shuttle race away. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Thrain, stood beside him. They flee without honor, Thrain said with disgust. Shall we destroy them? Capture them, Vexthor ordered. I want to question their commander about why they trespass. The Krillian ships moved forward in their perfect formation. Vexthor had fought in 40 campaigns across 12 star systems. He had never lost a battle. The Krillian way of war was ancient and honorable. Challenges were issued. Terms were set. Battles were fought with discipline and proper conduct. These humans would learn respect, or they would die. An alarm sounded on the bridge. Thrain checked his console and his face showed confusion. General, we have multiple impacts on our hull. Lower decks, sections 7 through 12. Impacts, Vexthor said. Did the humans fire on us? No weapons discharge detected, Thrain replied. It's as if something landed on our hull. Vexthor's eyes widened as understanding dawned. They're boarding us. Sound the alarm. Get security teams to those sections. But it was too late. Ben Harper and his Marines had already cut through the hull and entered the Krillian ship. They moved quickly through corridors, using tactics that would have been familiar to commandos from Earth's ancient wars. They didn't engage in honorable combat. They used corners for cover. They threw flashbang grenades to disorient defenders. They shot from concealment and retreated before the enemy could respond. The Krillian soldiers were brave, but they had never faced an enemy that fought like this. They were trained to meet opponents in proper combat, where both sides could see each other and fight with dignity. These humans appeared from nowhere, struck hard, and vanished into the ship's corridors before reinforcements could arrive. Ben led his team to the ship's engine room. They planted explosive charges on key systems and retreated back to their entry point. The entire operation took less than 10 minutes. The Marines sealed themselves back into their pods and launched away from the Krillian vessel. Charges set, Ben reported over the radio. Get us clear. Jake watched from the horizon as the Marine pods drifted back toward the ship. Amy, bring them in fast, then get us moving. The pods locked into their bays. The Horizon's engines flared to life, pushing the colony ship away from the Krillian fleet. On Vexthor's flagship, damage reports were flooding in. The humans had crippled his engine systems. His ship was dead in space. How? Vexthor demanded. How did they do this? Thrain had no answer. The humans had broken every rule of warfare he knew. They had not issued a challenge. They had not engaged in honorable combat. They had struck, from hiding and fled before the battle could be properly joined. It was shameful. It was cowardly. It was also devastatingly effective. Pursue them, Vexthor ordered the other ships. But be alert. These humans fight without honor. They cannot be trusted to follow any code. The Krillian ships moved forward again, but they were more cautious now. Their perfect formation had become looser, uncertain. The prey they had thought weak and helpless had drawn first blood. And Vexthor, for the first time in his long career, felt something he had never experienced in battle before. He felt doubt. On the horizon, Jake stood at his viewport and watched the alien ships give chase. The colonists were safe for now. But this was just the beginning. The Krillians would come again, and next time they would be ready for tricks. But Jake was already thinking 3 steps ahead. If these aliens had a code of warfare, then every rule they followed was a weakness he could exploit. "Get me a full analysis of their tactics," he told Amy. "I want to know every pattern, every tradition, every habit they have. We're going to use their honor against them." Amy nodded and got to work. Around the bridge, the crew began to relax. The horizon drifted through an asteroid field, its engines running at minimum power. Jake had ordered the ship to hide among the rocks, using the dense field to mask their sensor signature. It was a temporary solution, but it gave them time to think and plan. Lieutenant Nicole Stevens worked in the intelligence section, a small room filled with computers and monitoring equipment. She had been listening to Krillian communications for the past 2 days, and what she learned was fascinating. The aliens broadcasted everything in the clear, without encryption. It was as if they never considered that an enemy might listen. "Commander, you need to hear this," Nicole said over the intercom. Jake arrived at her station 5 minutes later. "What do you have?" Nicole played back a recorded transmission. Vex Thor's voice came through, speaking to his fleet. "The humans have violated the accords of proper warfare. They attacked without declaration. They struck from concealment. They fled before battle could be properly joined. These acts are beneath contempt. We will teach them the proper way of war, and if they refuse to learn, we will erase them from the stars." Jake listened carefully. "He sounds angry." "More than angry," Nicole said. "He sounds offended, like we insulted his honor or something. I've been analyzing all their communications. They have a whole philosophy about warfare. They believe in fair fights, open battles, and following rules." "That's their weakness," Jake said. "Keep monitoring them. I want to know everything about how they think." In the Marine quarters, Sergeant Kyle Brooks was preparing his team for their next mission. Kyle was lean and quiet, the kind of soldier who could disappear in an empty room. He had served in Earth's Special Forces before joining the colony mission, and he knew more about unconventional warfare than anyone else on the ship. Ben Harper walked into the room. "Kyle, the commander wants you for a special job." "What kind of job?" Kyle asked. "The kind you're good at," Ben replied, sneaking around and making the enemy nervous. Jake had called a meeting in the briefing room. Kyle, Ben, Amy, and Nicole all sat around the table. A holographic display showed the positions of the Krillian ships. They were searching the asteroid field, but their search pattern was methodical and predictable. "They're looking for us, but they're being careful," Amy explained. "They're afraid we'll try another boarding action." "Good," Jake said. "Fear is useful, but we need to do more than just hide. We need to make them so worried they can't think straight. Kyle, that's where you come in." Kyle leaned forward. "What do you need?" "I want you to take a small team out in stealth suits," Jake said. "Float among the asteroids. When a Krillian ship passes by, attach tracking devices to their hulls. Don't engage, don't get caught, just tag them and get back." "Why track them if we already know where they are?" Kyle asked. "Because I want them to find the devices," Jake said. "I want them to know we can touch their ships whenever we want. It'll make them paranoid." Kyle smiled. "Psychological warfare. I like it." That night, Kyle and 6 other Marines suited up in black stealth armor. They launched from the horizon, in near silence, using small maneuvering jets to drift through the asteroid field. The Krillian ships moved through the rocks like hunters, their searchlights cutting through the darkness. Kyle watched one of the alien vessels pass within 100 meters of his position. He activated his suit's thrusters and drifted toward it, moving slowly to avoid detection. His team followed, spreading out to cover different sections of the hull. The tracking device was small, barely larger than his thumb. Kyle pressed it against the Krillian ship's hull and felt it attach magnetically. The device would broadcast, a weak signal, just enough for the aliens to detect if they looked carefully. But it would take them time to find it, time spent worrying about what else the humans might have attached to their ships. Kyle and his team tagged 4 different vessels before retreating to the horizon. The entire operation took 3 hours. When they returned, Jake was waiting in the hangar bay. "How did it go?" Jake asked. "Like putting bells on sleeping cats," Kyle replied. "They never knew we were there." The next morning, Vexthor received a report that made his blood run cold. Human tracking devices had been found on 4 of his ships. The devices were simple, crude even, but the implications were terrifying. The humans had approached his vessels without being detected. They could have planted bombs instead of trackers. His entire fleet could have been destroyed while he slept. How did they do this? Vexthor demanded. Thrain examined the report. "They must have used some kind of stealth technology. Our sensors showed nothing." "Then our sensors are inadequate," Vexthor said. "Double the watch. Crews will sleep in shifts. Every ship will maintain full alert status at all times." But the damage was done. The Krillian crews were exhausted and nervous. They jumped at shadows and false alarms. The humans had gotten inside their heads without firing a shot. Nicole continued to monitor Krillian communications, and she noticed something interesting. The aliens talked constantly to each other, coordinating their movements and sharing information. They did this because it was the honorable thing to do. Allies should communicate. Fleets should coordinate. It was proper warfare. It was also an opportunity. "Commander, I think I can feed them false information," Nicole said during a briefing. "Their communications aren't encrypted. I can inject fake messages into their network, make them think we're somewhere we're not." "Do it," Jake said. "But be subtle. If they realize we're manipulating their communications, they'll shut everything down." Nicole spent the next day crafting false messages. She made them sound authentic, using Krillian military terminology and proper protocols. She created fake sensor reports showing the horizon moving through a different part of the asteroid field. She even fabricated distress calls suggesting human ships were damaged and vulnerable. The Krillian fleet took the bait. 3 of their ships broke formation and moved toward the false position, expecting to find easy prey. Instead, they found nothing but empty space and frustration. By the time they realized the deception, the horizon had moved to a new hiding spot. Vexthor stared at the empty space where the humans were supposed to be. "They tricked us. They sent false signals." "That's impossible," Thrain said. "Our communications are on secure military channels." "Apparently not secure enough," Vexthor replied bitterly. "These humans fight like demons. They have no honor, no dignity, no respect for proper conduct. Perhaps we should adopt their tactics," Thrain suggested carefully. "If they won't follow the rules, why should we?" Vexthor turned on his second-in-command with fury in his eyes. "Because we are Krillian. We have fought with honor for 10,000 years. I will not become like these animals just to achieve victory. We will defeat them the proper way, or we will die trying." But even as he said the words, Vexthor felt doubt creeping into his mind. His fleet was scattered, confused, and demoralized. The humans were always one step ahead, always doing the unexpected. They fought without honor, without rules, without any sense of proper warfare, and it was working. On the horizon, Jake studied the reports from Nicole's psychological operations. The Krillians were making mistakes now, acting on bad information, second-guessing themselves. It was time to push harder. "Amy, what's the status of our weapons?" Jake asked. "We have missiles, but not many," Amy replied. "Maybe enough for one good strike. I don't want to destroy their ships," Jake said. "I want to make them think we can destroy their ships anytime we want. Nicole, can you hack into their sensors?" "Maybe," Nicole said. "What do you have in mind?" "I want you to make our missile signatures look bigger than they are," Jake explained. "Make it look like we have 100 missiles when we only have 10. Make them think we've been holding back, waiting for the right moment." Nicole's fingers flew across her keyboard. "I can do that, but it won't fool them for long." "It doesn't need to," Jake said. "It just needs to fool them long enough." That night, the horizon emerged from the asteroid field with all weapons armed. Amy had programmed the missiles to follow erratic flight paths, zigzagging and looping in ways that made them hard to track. Nicole had modified their sensor signatures to make each missile appear as multiple targets. When the missiles launched, Krillian sensors showed a massive attack. Hundreds of incoming warheads, all converging on the fleet. It looked like certain death. "Evasive maneuvers," Vexthor shouted. "All ships scatter. Return fire." The Krillian fleet broke apart, each ship desperately trying to evade the incoming swarm. Their point defense systems blazed away, destroying targets that didn't exist. In the chaos, the 10 real missiles slipped through and struck their targets. Not fatal hits, but damaging ones. Engine systems failed. Weapon ports went dark. Communication arrays exploded. By the time the Krillians realized they had been tricked, again the horizon was gone, vanished back into the asteroid field. Vexthor sat in his command chair, surrounded by damage reports and casualty figures. His perfect fleet was becoming a wreck, one piece at a time. "They have no honor," Thrain said quietly. "No," Vexthor agreed. "They have something more dangerous. They have creativity. They don't follow rules because they don't believe in rules. Every battle is a new puzzle for them to solve, and they solve it with whatever works." "How do we fight an enemy like that?" Thrain asked. The colony ship Horizon had found a temporary home inside a large, hollow asteroid. The engineering teams had been working for days to turn the rocky cave into a defensive position. Captain Lisa Martinez directed the operation, her voice calm despite the exhaustion showing on her face. "Weld those support beams there," Lisa called out to her team. "We need this entrance reinforced before they find us." Jake watched the work from a makeshift command center deeper inside the asteroid. The hollow space was huge, big enough to hide the entire ship with room to spare. But hiding could only work for so long. The Krillians were still out there searching, getting angrier with each passing day. Dr. Ryan Foster walked up to Jake, carrying a tablet full of data. Ryan was supposed to be the colony's chief medical officer, but the war had turned everyone into soldiers. Now he spent his time studying Krillian biology instead of treating patients. "I've been analyzing the alien bodies we recovered from the boarding action," Ryan said. "I found something interesting." "Show me," Jake replied. Ryan pulled up images on his tablet. "Their eyes are very sensitive to certain light frequencies, much more sensitive than human eyes. I think we could use bright strobing lights as a weapon against them. It would temporarily blind them, maybe even cause pain." Jake studied the data. "Can we build something like that?" "Lisa's team can," Ryan said. "It's just modified emergency lights hooked up to power cells. Simple but effective." "Do it," Jake said. "Anything that gives us an advantage." Lisa's engineers worked through the night, converting emergency lights into improvised weapons. They also built traps throughout the asteroid using mining explosives and pressure sensors. Anyone trying to enter would face a deadly maze of surprises. "This reminds me of old Earth wars," Ben Harper said as he inspected the defenses. "Guerrilla, fighters hiding in caves and mountains, using the terrain against superior forces." "That's exactly what we are," Jake replied. "Guerrillas. We can't match them ship for ship, so we have to make every advantage count." Outside the asteroid, the Krillian fleet had regrouped. Vexthor had called his officers to a meeting on his flagship. They gathered in the conference room, and the general could see doubt in their eyes. His perfect fleet had been reduced to a frustrated mob, chasing shadows and getting bloodied for their trouble. "We need a new strategy," Vexthor said. "The humans refuse to fight properly. They hide. They deceive. They strike from nowhere. Our traditional tactics are ineffective." Sub-Commander Thrain stood up. "General, with respect, perhaps we should consider adopting some of their methods. If they won't fight with honor, why, should we limit ourselves?" The other officers murmured in agreement. Vexthor felt anger rising in his chest. "Because we are not animals. The Krillian way of war has brought us victory for thousands of years. I will not abandon our traditions just because these humans lack honor." "But General," another officer said carefully, "we are losing. Our ships are damaged, our crews are exhausted, and the humans seem to anticipate our every move. Perhaps honor is a luxury we cannot afford." Vexthor slammed his fist on the table. "Enough! We will find the human ship and we will destroy it. But we will do so the Krillian way, with strength, with courage, and with honor. I will hear no more talk of adopting human tactics." The officers fell silent. Vexthor dismissed them and stood alone in the conference room, staring at the star charts on the wall. Deep down, he knew they were right. His honor was costing him the battle, but he could not bring himself to become like the humans, to fight without rules or dignity. It went against everything he believed in. On the horizon, Nicole had discovered something important. "Commander, I've been tracking Krillian patrol patterns. They're systematic, almost mathematical. They divide space into grids and search each grid thoroughly before moving on." "Can we predict where they'll search next?" Jake asked. "Yes," Nicole said, "which means we can be somewhere else. Or we can be exactly where they don't expect us," Jake said thoughtfully. "How long until they search this sector?" Nicole checked her calculations. "About 6 days at their current pace." "That's not much time," Jake said. "Lisa, how are the fortifications coming?" Lisa appeared on the video screen, her face streaked with dirt and sweat. "We're making progress. Another 3 days and we'll have this place locked down tight. But Commander, I have to be honest. If they bring their whole fleet against us, these defenses won't hold for long." "They don't need to hold forever," Jake replied. "Just long enough for us to make them regret attacking." The next few days passed in intense preparation. The engineers built defensive positions and weapon emplacements. The Marines trained in the asteroid's narrow tunnels, learning how to fight in close quarters. Nicole set up sensor jammers and communication scramblers. Every person on the horizon had a job, and everyone worked like their lives depended on it. Because they did. Ryan continued his research on Krillian biology. He discovered that the aliens had a limited tolerance for temperature variations. They came from a planet with a very stable climate, and extreme heat or cold made them sluggish and confused. This gave the humans another tool to use. "We can flood sections of the asteroid with hot steam or cold gas," Ryan explained. "It won't kill them, but it'll slow them down significantly." "Add it to the defenses," Jake ordered. On the 6th day, Nicole's sensors detected the Krillian fleet entering the sector. They were coming in force, all 7 ships moving together. This time they weren't taking chances. "Here they come," Amy said from her tactical station. "They've found us." Jake watched the approaching ships on the display. "Everyone to battle stations. This is what we've been preparing for." The Krillian ships took up positions around the asteroid. Vexthor stood on his bridge, studying the rocky surface. "The humans are inside that rock. Launch boarding parties. We will dig them out." Troop carriers launched from the Krillian ships. Hundreds of alien soldiers in combat armor descended toward the asteroid's surface. They expected resistance, but they were prepared for proper combat. What they found was something entirely different. The first wave of Krillian soldiers entered through a large opening in the asteroid. They advanced in proper military formation, weapons ready, moving like the professional warriors they were. Then they triggered the first trap. Explosives hidden in the walls detonated, bringing down chunks of rock and debris. The Krillians scattered, their formation breaking apart. Before they could regroup, the strobing lights activated. Bright flashes filled the tunnel, frequencies specifically chosen to overwhelm Krillian eyes. The alien soldiers stumbled blindly, crying out in pain and confusion. That's when the humans attacked. Kyle Brooks and his team had been waiting in side tunnels, dressed in dark combat armor that blended with the shadows. They opened fire on the blinded and disoriented aliens, then vanished back into the darkness before the Krillians could respond. "Contact left!" a Krillian soldier shouted. "No, wait, contact right! They're everywhere!" But the humans weren't everywhere. They were in specific positions, carefully chosen to create the illusion of overwhelming numbers. They would fire, retreat, and reappear somewhere else. The Krillians tried to pursue, but the tunnels were trapped and confusing. Every turn could hide an ambush. Every dark corner could hold death. Vexthor listened to the reports coming from the boarding parties. Casualties were mounting, and his soldiers were making no progress. The humans had turned the asteroid into a killing ground, using their environment like a weapon. "General, perhaps we should withdraw and bombard the asteroid from orbit," Thrain suggested. "We could destroy the entire rock and everything inside it." Vexthor considered the option. It would work, but it felt wrong, like admitting defeat. His soldiers were down there, fighting and dying. To abandon them now would be a final surrender of honor. No, Vexthor said. Send more troops. Overwhelming force. The humans can't defend everywhere at once. More Krillian soldiers poured into the asteroid. This time they moved more carefully, but the result was the same. Lisa's engineering team had wired the entire tunnel system with sensors and remote controls. They could trigger traps from safety, collapsing tunnels on enemy soldiers or flooding chambers with superheated steam. Ryan's research paid off as well. Hidden vents released jets of freezing gas into Krillian-occupied areas. The aliens slowed down, their movements becoming sluggish as their bodies struggled with the temperature change. Human soldiers wearing environmental suits moved through the cold with ease and struck down the vulnerable Krillians. Hours passed. The battle raged through the tunnels of the asteroid, but the humans held every strategic position. The Krillians had the numbers, but the humans had home ground advantage and the willingness to fight dirty. Every rule of proper warfare was broken. Every honorable combat practice was ignored, and the humans were winning. On his flagship, Vexthor received the worst news yet. Nearly a third of his ground forces were casualties. The survivors were scattered, confused, and demoralized. They had never faced an enemy that fought like this, an enemy that seemed to exist in the shadows and strike from nowhere. Pull them back, Vexthor ordered quietly. Withdraw all ground forces. Sir? Thrain said in surprise. We're retreating. We're withdrawing, Vexthor corrected. There's a difference. 3 weeks had passed since the battle in the asteroid. The horizon remained hidden, but supplies were running dangerously low. Jake sat in his quarters, staring at inventory reports that told a grim story. They had 2 weeks of food left, maybe 3 if they rationed carefully. Medical supplies were almost gone, and they had used most of their ammunition in the last fight. A knock came at his door. Come in, Jake said. Amy entered, looking tired. Sir, we've picked up Krillian communications. They're arguing among themselves. About what? Jake asked. About General Vexthor, Amy replied. Some of his officers are questioning his leadership. They think he's too focused on honor and tradition. They want to fight us the way we fight them. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. If they start using our tactics against us, we'll lose our advantage. Exactly, Amy said. We need to do something before they adapt. That afternoon, Jake called a meeting with his senior officers. Everyone looked exhausted. The stress of constant vigilance was wearing them down. They needed a way to end this conflict, and they needed it soon. We can't keep hiding forever, Ben Harper said. Eventually they'll find us or we'll run out of supplies. What if we offer to surrender? Lisa suggested. Everyone turned to look at her. Hear me out. What if we fake a surrender, make them think they've won, and then hit them when they're not expecting it? Nicole shook her head. That's risky. If they suspect a trick, they might just destroy us immediately. Everything we do is risky, Jake said. But Lisa has a point. The Krillians expect honorable behavior. A surrender would fit their worldview. They'd want to accept it properly, with ceremony and dignity. And that's when we strike, Kyle said with a grim smile. The plan took shape over the next few hours. It was dangerous, maybe even suicidal, but it was also the kind of unexpected move that had kept them alive so far. They would broadcast a surrender offer, claim their ship was damaged and their supplies exhausted. The Krillians would send a boarding party to formally accept the surrender, and that's when everything would go wrong for them. We need to make it convincing, Jake said. Nicole, can you fake damage reports and make our power systems look like they're failing? Yes, Nicole replied. I can make it look like we're barely surviving. Do it, Jake ordered. We broadcast the surrender tomorrow morning. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. If the Krillians suspected a trap, they might attack with overwhelming force. But if they believed the surrender was genuine, the humans might finally get a decisive victory. On his flagship, General Vexthor sat in meditation. It was a Krillian practice meant to clear the mind and strengthen the spirit. But tonight meditation brought no peace. His mind kept returning to the humans and their infuriating way of fighting. They had beaten him at every turn, not through strength or superior technology, but through deception and dishonorable tactics. Sub-Commander Thrain entered the meditation chamber. General, we've received a transmission from the human ship. Vexthor opened his eyes. What do they want? They're offering to surrender, Thrain said, unable to hide his surprise. They claim their ship is damaged beyond repair and their supplies are exhausted. They request terms of surrender according to proper military protocol. Vexthor stood up, his 4 eyes narrowing in suspicion. This could be another trick. It could be, Thrain agreed. But their power readings are very low. Our sensors show multiple system failures on their ship. They may be telling the truth. Or they may be very good liars, Vexthor said. These humans have deceived us before. What should we do? Thrain asked. Vexthor thought carefully. If this was a genuine surrender, accepting it properly was a matter of honor. But if it was a trick, walking into it would be foolish. He needed more information. Tell them we will accept their surrender, Vexthor said. But we will do so on our terms. They will allow a small boarding party to inspect their vessel and verify their claims. If they are truly defeated, we will accept their surrender with honor. If this is deception, we will show no mercy. The message went back to the horizon. Jake read it and nodded. They're being cautious, but they're taking the bait. Everyone get ready. This is going to be our one chance. The next morning, a Krillian shuttle approached the horizon. Inside were 10 alien soldiers and an officer named Commander Drax. They were alert and suspicious, weapons ready for any sign of trouble. The humans had allowed them to come armed, which was proper protocol for accepting surrender. The shuttle docked with the Horizon's main airlock. Commander Drax and his team entered the ship carefully, scanning every corridor and room they passed. The ship looked damaged. Lights flickered. The air smelled of burned circuits. Human crew members stood aside, looking defeated and exhausted. Where is your commander? Drax demanded. On the bridge, a human soldier replied. This way. They led the Krillians through the ship. Jake stood on the bridge, his hands empty and visible. Amy and Nicole stood nearby, also unarmed. Everything looked proper and correct. I am Commander Jake Morrison, Jake said. We are prepared to surrender our vessel and our people. We ask only that you treat us according to the laws of honorable warfare. Drax studied Jake carefully. The human looked tired and defeated. The ship was clearly damaged. This appeared to be genuine. General Vexthor will accept your surrender. You and your crew will be taken into custody, and that's when the lights went out. In the darkness, chaos erupted. The Krillians tried to use their weapon lights, but bright strobing beams hit them from all directions, overwhelming their sensitive eyes. Human soldiers in night vision goggles attacked from every side. The Krillians fired blindly, but their shots hit nothing but empty air. Commander Drax realized too late that he had walked into a trap. The surrender was fake. The damage was fake. Everything was fake. He tried to reach for his communicator to warn the fleet, but a human soldier tackled him from behind. Within seconds, all 10 Krillian soldiers were subdued and disarmed. The lights came back on. Jake stood over Commander Drax, his expression cold. I'm sorry, but we're not surrendering today. On the Krillian flagship, Vexthor waited for Drax to report. Minutes passed with no word. Then an hour. Finally, a transmission came through. It was Jake's voice. General Vexthor, this is Commander Morrison. We have your boarding party in custody. They are unharmed, but they are our prisoners. If you want them back alive, you will hear our terms. Vexthor felt rage and shame burning through him. He had been tricked again. The humans had used his own honor against him, making him believe they would surrender when it was just another deception. He slammed his fist on his command chair. What are your terms? Vexthor asked, his voice tight with anger. Leave this sector of space, Jake said. Return to your territory and never come back. Do this and we'll release your soldiers unharmed. Refuse and we'll find creative ways to make you regret it. Vexthor wanted to refuse. Every instinct told him to attack, to crush these dishonorable humans once and for all. But he looked around his bridge and saw the faces of his crew. They were tired, scared, and demoralized. The humans had broken them not through superior firepower, but through constant psychological pressure. I need time to consider, Vexthor said. You have 6 hours, Jake replied. The transmission ended. Thrain approached Vexthor carefully. General, what will you do? I don't know, Vexthor admitted. It was the first time he had ever said those words in his 40 campaigns. These humans have defeated me at every turn. They fight without honor, without rules, without any sense of proper conduct. And it works. My fleet is damaged, my soldiers are frightened, and my reputation is destroyed. Perhaps we should contact High Command, Thrain suggested. Request reinforcements and tell them what? Vexthor asked bitterly. That I was beaten by a single colony ship? That humans tricked me again and again? No, this is my failure. I must find a way to fix it. But deep down, Vexthor knew the truth. He couldn't fix this. The humans had exposed a fundamental weakness in Krillian warfare. Their honor and tradition made them predictable. Their rules gave enemies tools to exploit them. For thousands of years, the Krillians had fought other civilizations that shared their beliefs about proper warfare. But the humans were different. The humans had no rules at all. On the horizon, Jake watched the clock count down. 5 hours passed. Then 5.5. He began to wonder if Vexthor would simply attack, accepting the loss of his soldiers rather than submit to human demands. With 10 minutes left on the deadline, a transmission came through. Vexthor's face appeared on screen and Jake could see the defeat in his eyes. I will accept your terms, Vexthor said. We will withdraw from this sector. But I want to meet with you first. Face-to-face, commander to commander. I need to understand how you defeated me. Jake considered the request. It could be a trap, but something in Vexthor's voice told him it wasn't. The alien general sounded genuinely lost, searching for answers. All right, Jake agreed. Tomorrow in neutral space. You and me, no weapons, no tricks. Agreed, Vexthor said. And Commander Morrison, I must say this. You are the most dishonorable enemy I have ever faced. But you are also the most effective. I do not know if I should hate you or respect you. Maybe both, Jake replied. The meeting place was a small, empty region of space between two dead planets. Jake stood in the shuttle bay of the horizon, checking his equipment one last time. He wore no weapons, just a simple flight suit and a communicator. Ben Harper stood beside him, looking worried. Sir, this could still be a trap, Ben said. The Krillians could grab you and use you as leverage. I don't think so, Jake replied. Vexthor sounded defeated, not aggressive. He genuinely wants to understand what happened to him. And if you're wrong, Ben asked, then you'll have to lead these people to safety without me, Jake said. But I don't think I'm wrong. Sometimes you have to trust your instincts. The shuttle launched, carrying only Jake and the pilot. They flew through space toward the coordinates Vexthor had provided. Another shuttle appeared on sensors coming from the Krillian flagship. Both vessels slowed and stopped, floating in the void between stars. This is it, the pilot said. The Krillian shuttle is requesting docking permission. Granted, Jake said. The two shuttles connected airlock to airlock. Jake stood as the door opened, revealing General Vexthor on the other side. The alien general looked older somehow, as if the past few weeks had aged him years. His 4 eyes studied Jake with a mixture of curiosity and resignation. Commander Morrison, Vexthor said. Thank you for meeting with me. General Vexthor, Jake replied. Thank you for honoring our agreement. They moved to the shuttle's small passenger compartment. There was barely enough room for both of them, but it felt appropriate somehow. Two commanders face to face with nowhere to hide. Vexthor sat down heavily. I have fought in 40 campaigns across 12 star systems. I have defeated enemies that outnumbered me 10-1. I have never lost a battle until I met your people. You haven't lost, Jake said carefully. You're withdrawing, but that's different from defeat. Do not patronize me, Vexthor said, but there was no anger in his voice. I know defeat when I experience it. You outmaneuvered me, outthought me, and made a fool of me at every turn. I need to understand how. Why are humans so different from every other species we have encountered? Jake leaned back and thought about how to explain. How long has your civilization been unified? He asked. Over 10,000 years, Vexthor replied. We achieved global unity early in our history. One government, one people, one set of laws. Humanity has never been unified, Jake said. For our entire history, we've been divided into nations, tribes, and factions. We've fought each other constantly. Thousands of wars, millions of battles, countless ways of killing each other. Vexthor's eyes widened. You fought your own kind? For thousands of years. Still do sometimes, Jake admitted. We have a saying on Earth. Humanity's greatest talent is finding new ways to kill other humans. Every war taught us something. Every defeat made us smarter. Every victory made our enemies more desperate and creative. But surely you developed codes of warfare, Vexthor said. Rules to prevent total barbarism? We tried, Jake said. We made rules about treating prisoners, about protecting civilians, about what weapons were too horrible to use. But desperate people break rules. And in war, everyone eventually becomes desperate. Vexthor sat in silence, absorbing this information. So you fight without honor because you never learned honor? No, Jake said firmly. We fight without your kind of honor because we learned that honor gets you killed. We have honor, General, but our honor is about protecting our people, completing our mission, and surviving against impossible odds. If that means lying, hiding, and striking from the shadows, then that's what we do. It sounds like chaos, Vexthor said. It is chaos, Jake agreed, but it's also effective. Your people fight in formations and follow rules because that's how you've always done it. It works when everyone else fights the same way, but we've never had the luxury of predictable enemies. Vexthor stood and walked to the viewport, staring out at the stars. Do you know what the Krillian Empire is built on? Honor, tradition, and the belief that there is a right way to do things. Our military codes are 10,000 years old. They have brought us victory after victory. Until now, Jake said quietly. Until now, Vexthor agreed. You have shown me that our traditions are also our weakness. Any enemy who refuses to follow our rules can exploit our predictability. I reported this to my high command. Do you know what they said? What? Jake asked. They said I should learn from this experience, Vexthor replied. They want me to study human warfare and adapt our tactics. They see you not as dishonorable enemies, but as teachers. Jake blinked in surprise. Teachers? Vexthor turned to face him. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Commander. There are species out there far more hostile than the Krillian Empire. The Harko Swarm, which fights with overwhelming numbers. The Zenith Collective, which uses biological weapons without mercy. The Void Shadows, which we know almost nothing about except that they destroy entire planets. And you think we can help you fight them? Jake asked. I think you can teach us to adapt, Vexthor said. Your people have a gift for creative thinking under pressure. You see warfare as a puzzle to solve, not a ritual to perform. That mindset could save the Krillian Empire from threats we cannot yet imagine. Jake stood and joined Vexthor at the viewport. What exactly are you proposing? An alliance, Vexthor said. The Krillian Empire offers humanity friendship instead of conquest. We will help you establish your colony on New Haven. We will share our technology. In return, you will share your tactical knowledge. You will teach our military commanders to think like humans. That's a big change from trying to kill us, Jake observed. Yes, Vexthor agreed. But I have learned that change is necessary for survival. If I had not been willing to change, your people would have destroyed my fleet eventually. You were winning, Commander Morrison, not because you had better ships or more soldiers, but because you were willing to do whatever it took to survive. Jake thought about the offer. It was tempting. The Krillians had advanced technology that could help humanity expand into space, and having powerful allies would make the galaxy a less dangerous place for human colonies. But there was a concern. If we teach you our tactics, won't that make you more dangerous? What's to stop you from using that knowledge against us in the future? Vexthor met Jake's eyes with his 4 unblinking orbs. Nothing, he admitted. You would have to trust us. Just as I am trusting you now by making this offer. Trust is a risk, but everything worthwhile involves risk, does it not? Yes, Jake said. It does. They talked for another hour, working out the details of a possible agreement. Vexthor would take the proposal back to his high command. Jake would present it to the colony leadership. If both sides agreed, this conflict could end not with destruction but with cooperation. Finally, Vexthor stood to leave. Before I go, I must ask you something. Why did you agree to meet with me? You could have simply taken your victory and left us wondering. Jake smiled slightly. Because I'm tired of fighting. And because I think you're right about the galaxy being dangerous. Humans might be good at warfare, but we're also good at making allies. Sometimes the best victory is the one where nobody has to die. That is a very human philosophy, Vexthor said. Pragmatic and hopeful at the same time. Perhaps we Krillians have much to learn from you after all. They shook hands, an Earth custom that Vexthor found awkward but appreciated. Then they returned to their respective shuttles and departed. Back on the horizon, Jake was immediately surrounded by his officers, all demanding to know what happened. He called a meeting in the briefing room and explained Vexthor's proposal. Can we trust them? Ben asked skeptically. I don't know, Jake admitted, but I think we have to try. If we keep fighting, we might win eventually, but we'll lose people in the process. And even if we survive, we'll still be alone out here with no friends and no support. An alliance could change everything. Lisa said thoughtfully. With Krillian technology, we could build a real colony. Maybe even more than one. And if they betray us? Amy asked. Then we'll deal with it the same way we dealt with this conflict, Jake said. By adapting, improvising, and doing whatever it takes to survive. That's what humans do best. The vote was unanimous. They would accept the alliance offer, pending approval from Earth and Krillian High Command. Messages were sent across light years, carrying news of the unlikely partnership between two very different civilizations. 3 weeks later, the colony ship Horizon entered orbit around New Haven. Krillian vessels stood guard nearby, protecting the vulnerable colonists as they began the process of building their new home. General Vex Thor visited the planet's surface and watched humans and Krillians working side by side. This is strange, Thrain said, standing beside his general. A month ago we were trying to destroy them. Now we are helping them build homes. War makes enemies, Vex Thor replied, but peace makes allies, and sometimes enemies teach us more than friends ever could. Jake stood on a hillside overlooking the construction site. The colony was taking shape, buildings rising from bare ground, fields being planted, children playing in the dirt happy and safe. This was what they had been fighting for. Not glory or territory, but simple survival and the chance to build something new. Ambassador Elena Price walked up beside him.